This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the X-Cast. As ever, the truth is in here, and I'm your host on this episode, Carl Sweeney, and welcome back to I Want to Believe Minute, where we are going through the second X-Files movie 1 minute at a time, as we did for Fight the Future just a few years ago, and we are currently at minute 76, so we're picking up today at 75 minutes 0 seconds as Yank Dakshin enters the feed store, through to 75 minutes 59 seconds as Mulder tails Dakshin's plough truck in his car. Joining me once again is Cortlan Waters Bartley. Hello, Cortlan.
Hello, Carl.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad at all. Thank you, yeah. And before we get going properly on this minute, just a quick reminder that we're all over social media, mainly on X at the X_cast, and a quick reminder that we would love a 5-star rating and review on any podcast platform if you could spare a few seconds. Okay, so we're still in the feed store where we were last minute, and I don't know about you, but it's actually quite a nice little sleight of hand thing going on here in the sense that we don't see Mulder hide from this guy who's walking in, but he kind of does it off screen, doesn't he? And then we realise that he's kind of hidden away. I quite like that.
It is a really good misdirect where we follow the feed store guy to the phone and we see the plow truck, but then we see the person from behind. So it could be Mulder a little bit like on the edge of the screen, but then it's very quickly not Mulder and Mulder has vanished, through movie magic.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, it is good.
I thought it was good, yeah. So Dakshin enters the store. Mulder is already hidden, like I said, and the owner comes back out and he's like, what happened to the other guy? Of course, Dakshin doesn't know anything about it, but he's here to refill his prescription. So possibly then he's refilling his acetapromazine prescription. So do we think, if it is acetapromazine that he's getting here, do we think this is like a routine enough request for the feed store guy not to be making the connection here with the fact that Mulder literally just asked him about acetapromazine, and actually showed him a picture of this man, come to think of it.
Exactly. No, that's what I wrote down. I was like, he literally just saw this guy's picture. But like we said, he was distracted, trying to go home, not giving Mulder a ton of attention. So maybe it doesn't click for him, but it really should have. Really, what a coincidence. The other guy who is mysteriously disappeared also wanted some acetapromazine. That's so strange. Yeah. It's odd if it doesn't click for him. He's very distracted by getting home.
Like I said, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he did seem genuinely preoccupied. And again, this is maybe where I'm giving the actor credit, because I did think he was believably kind of harried and preoccupied previously, to the extent that he would not be making these connections. So I'm gonna let it slide, I think.
Do we think it would have made a big difference if Mulder had flashed a badge? Like, hey, by the way, I'm investigating a serious crime that involves acetapromazine.
What would Mulder have to flash him at this point?
He wouldn't really, I suppose.
I guess,
anything, just the paper that he showed him, I suppose, wouldn't have anything official.
I don't know, unless he'd been given some kind of temporary thing, because he has been tagging along at crime scenes and whatnot, hasn't he? But, Anyway, so then Dakshin drives away in his plough truck. Did you notice that the local dogs were barking as if they sensed that this man was up to no good?
I did. Recurring theme of barking dogs in this movie. So I did notice that he was being chased by the dogs. Yeah.
These ones only had one head, though, as opposed to the one with two heads earlier in the at the abductor's hideout or whatever it is. Also, on the wildlife front, there were some crows on the road, and we hear them cawing. I think that's the word for what crows do. I'm not sure. And really, then the minute ends with Mulder, like I say, he's tailing this man in his, Mulder's in his Ford, Yank Dakshin is in his plough truck. Anything else jump out at you about this minute, Cortlan?
Well, so logistically, do we think Mulder hid in the feed store? Like, is he like in like behind a shelf somewhere? Because he couldn't have gotten out without crossing paths with him, like at the door. So Mulder is like crouched, like behind a shelf or something. Yeah,
that's quite a funny mental image actually. But my assumption was that maybe there was some kind of side room or something that he could have ducked into. But maybe just crouched behind some bird feed or something.
It gave me strong. So I grew up on a farm. So we would go to. It's not really a feed store. It's more of like a supply store. It's called Big Blue in where I'm from. There are like a million. Big Blue is a chain, like 84 Lumber is a chain. There are all these chains of like rural. There's one here called Rural King. That's the name of this. It doesn't matter. It's like a feed, animal supply, farm supply kind of place. And so we would go to Big Blue and they sold like outerwear in particular for farmers, like Carhartt before it was cool. So there'd be racks and racks of like Carhartt jackets in Big Blue, and my sister and I used to hide in the middle of them because like it's a circular rack that's just lined with these really heavy coats. And I just am imagining Mulder like hiding. I didn't see any racks of Carhartt in this particular feed store, but in my imagination they're there, and he's like hiding in the middle of like a rack of clothing maybe while he waits for this guy to go.
So what is the difference between like a feed store and just like a pet store or whatever where you would go to buy cat food or dog food? Like, is a feed store more like it's more industrial quantities of this stuff for like farmers and that kind of thing, is it?
Yeah, that's how I would take. I mean, I think probably this particular feed store is maybe both because it's probably the only one in there. Like it's an isolated area. So he's like filling prescriptions and selling. Like there was like shelves and stuff with like hats and, so maybe he does like a little bit of all of it. It probably depends on where you are. But like a pet supply is different than like a feed store. I guess feed store in my mind is a little more broad, like chickens and stuff.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I think the actor is good, the feed store owner. Mm-hmm. And he's a man called Stephen Miller, or Stevie Miller, as Chris Carter calls him on the commentary. He's also a novelist, in addition to being an actor. But perhaps the most interesting thing for our purposes is that he's a bit of a... he's one of those guys who had popped up in the X-Files before. So, Cortlan, did you recognise him at all? Did you have the nagging sense that you knew who he was, or even more specific memories? No?
Nope. Because I watched on Amazon Prime, I have the little highlight that comes up with his name, but that I did not trigger any people's names are not going to ever trigger anything like that for me. I would have to have looked him up, and I did not. So,
well, that's all right. I mean, Chris Carter says on the commentary he was in about a dozen episodes of the X-Files, but
oh my god. Was he really?
Well, no, I don't think he really was. Looking on IMDb, at least, anyway, there are only 3 credits listed.
Okay, so maybe he's uncredited in a lot of them.
Yeah, or maybe Carter was just kind of exaggerating, or let's see if we can find out exactly where he was. So, he's in Season 1, Episode 1, the pilot episode.
He's in the pilot. Is he one of the, law enforcement guys?
If I say his character name was Coroner Truitt, does that ring any bells? Or not?
So...
like where he would have been in the episode, like?
Nope.
So, I think what's interesting is that I believe he is the actor who spoke the first line of dialogue ever in the X-Files. Because you remember the opening scene of the X-Files where you have the young woman running through the... stumbling over the logs and all that sort of stuff. And she sees the glowing light, and then you go to the next day, and she's dead. Uh-huh. And then you get Detective Miles and Coroner Truitt, played by Stephen Miller, looking at the body. And the first line of dialogue ever in the X-Files is Truitt saying, "I put the time of death between 8 and 12 hours ago. No visible cause, no sign of battery or sexual assault. All we have is this." So that was him.
No. Well, I never would have guessed that. And also, that's awesome.
Yeah. I think that's a nice... They should have got him... My Struggle 4, if they could have had him do the final line of dialogue ever in the X-Files,
right?
That would have been a nice
where you need him to show back up in Requiem. Like, is he in Requiem? No.
He's not.
I wish that he were. Like,
actually, the episodes he's in are pretty high caliber. So the next time he appears is season 2, episode 5, Dwayne Barry. Can you picture him there?
nope. No, I cannot.
If I tell you that his character name was Tactical Commander.
So, I guess he's someone who's about to storm the building, but I don't know any more specifics than that.
So I think, do you remember when Mulder was going to go in and they kind of training him?
Yeah, yes.
Let's see, I think he was part of that.
Maybe he's in that little...
Yeah. I'm just looking at a website called InsideTheX.co.uk because you get the transcripts there. And,
yeah.
I'm seeing if he's got any memorable lines of dialogue. So, no, his first line of dialogue in that episode is nothing, absolutely nothing, sir. So it's not... Right, okay, here we go. So,
Okay.
there's a scene in Dwayne Barry where Mulder's being prepped and
Okay.
like somebody puts a receiver type thing in his ear.
Yeah.
And the tactical commander says, now you'll have almost full ambient hearing loss in this ear. Your sense of balance might be affected slightly. So yeah, he's that guy.
I do remember that line. That line, but...
So that was him.
Okay. Great.
So that's another good role, I think. A decent role. And the third and final appearance in the... Well, not the final, because the final one is I Want to Believe. But in the original series, he's in Piper Maru, season 3, episode 15. And the character there is called Wayne Morgan. And I can't, off the top of my head, remember who that would be in Piper Maru, so I'm going to have to look it up, unless you know.
I do not. No, I do not know.
Let's see if I can find that then.
Interesting. No, clearly I'm very bad at the names, faces.
Right. Right. I think he only has a pretty brief role here, by the looks of it. Yeah. So when Mulder and Scully turn up at the US Naval Station, and they identify themselves, and he has a line, I'm Wayne Morgan, I'm with the Navy's Investigative Services Unit. That seems to be about it. So
Okay,
so just a blink and you miss it thing in Piper Maru.
But counts. It still counts.
It still counts, yeah. The other thing I think Kurt North, if he's listening, will want me to mention is that Stephen Miller did have a role in Millennium, I believe.
Sure.
I'm just going to try and find the character name, because I can't...
Interesting.
Assistant Director Andy McLaren. Okay, and he's in 12 episodes of Millennium. And
oh, wow. So a lot of episodes of Millennium.
He's actually in the Millennium pilot as a different character, as a detective, and then in the 3rd season of Millennium, he's in 11 or so episodes. So he's got a substantial supporting role in Millennium. And, like a very long list of credits. He's still working as recently as 2023, according to IMDb. So... Good stuff. I've got a vague memory that Tony may have interviewed him, actually, in the last few years. Maybe for the Millennium podcast. Maybe
Chris Carter was remembering that he was also in a lot of episodes of Millennium. And that's why he said a dozen or so.
Yeah.
Because that would make sense.
Yeah, he just remembers him being around a lot.
Yeah. He's in a bunch of episodes of things.
Carter did say that he was feeling... They looked at one point like Stephen Miller wouldn't be able to participate in I Want to Believe, and he would have been disappointed if that had been the case. So I like that, even though he's only, I say, a few episodes of The X-Files originally, but, he had a sense of this being a guy who, you can count on, I guess, and he wants him in there. So, yeah. Yeah,
that's awesome. It's great that he's in the pilot.
Yeah, I would love to be the person who delivered the first ever line of dialogue in The X-Files, I think that's a nice claim to fame,
Do you think that's why he works in Nutter's feed store? Since it was the pilot, and Nutter is the pilot guy.
Oh, it could be. Although, I don't think Nutter was like the X-Files pilot guy, was he?
No, but maybe he was, maybe by this point he was like other people's pilot guy. I don't know. In my mind, I just made that. Put that together. Not important.
The last thing I was going to mention on this minute, like I say, we see the plough truck that Yanked Action is driving around in. How long do you think people have been using like snowplows, Cortlan? How far back in human history? Yeah, when do you think they came into usage?
Well, I would imagine that we've been using some version of a plow for a long time. Although I guess it had to be sometime around carriages, right? A carriage would also maybe need some kind of snow pushing or like removal. I don't know.
Well, according to the Plows and Mows website, that's great. Plows with a Z or a Z and Mows with a Z, right?
Great.
The earliest patents for snowplows goes back to 1840, but there are no records. There are no records of them actually being used until 1862.
Oh, okay.
And that was when the city of Milwaukee began operating horse-drawn carts fitted with snowplows.
Nice. That makes Milwaukee, yeah. They get a lot of snow, so.
Right. And then the first motorized snowplows were developed in 1913 based on truck and tractor bodies. Okay.
So pretty early. Yeah, pretty early. That seems like a long time to be plowing snow.
It does, to be fair. We don't really need many snowplows over here. We just get the odd little flurry. But
oh boy. The truck actually that we're talking about in this minute, I feel like my stepfather maybe owned that exact truck and snowplow. Literally, it's identical to my childhood memory of the snowplow. So yeah, he definitely worked in lawn care. So in the winter he plowed snow. That's what he did. So he had a plow that would go on the front of the pickup truck.
So when you said that, I was wondering who actually needs to drive a snowplow like that. To my mind, it would be people who work for the local council or something. But
well, so obviously the local government would do the roads and stuff like that, but they won't come do your parking lot, for example. Mm. So he would do a lot of church parking lots. Will hire someone to plow their snow, or I think he worked or did the local Kmart. That's how. Throwback. The local Kmart got there. He would plow their parking lot, things like that. Or even homes, driveways, a private driveway. There are some people who would hire you to plow their driveway.
So it sounds like quite a nice little sideline, really. If you can, corner the market in a local area, you're the guy with the plow. No, it must be quite a nice thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But especially if you're someone who does lawn care in the summer, where I live, we have all 4 seasons. So lawn care is a summer job. And in the winter, you got to do something. Plow snow.
Great stuff. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we might talk more about snow and ice and plows and things like that in minute 77, Cortlan, because
sounds good.
That is right around the corner. So we'll stop there. We'll reconvene for minute 77 very soon. Thanks everybody for listening to us today, and until next time, always remember, trust no one.